Number 10. Dog. Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, is the companion of Lobo over at DC. Mostly Lobo just tolerates Dog's presence though, and doesn't think of Dog as his own pet. Dog might look like the bulldogs of Earth, but he's actually an alien who just looks like a bulldog. He's known for being quite durable and, like Lobo, can survive in the vacuum of space. Dog also sometimes is seen smoking and was originally recognizable in the comics by his cross collar, which actually resembled the red iron cross, a symbol that Lobo also wore back then, so they had kind of like matching little necklaces. The modern version of Dog no longer appears to be associated with this symbol. Fans of Lobo might be fans of Dog, although it should be noted that in the original New Earth continuity, Lobo was actually the one who ended up killing that alien after Dog himself was possessed. Number 9. Comet the Super Horse. Comet is an interesting one and really ranks lower not because he lacks power, but because he's secretly actually a man. Or a centaur really. A centaur that was accidentally turned into a full-on horse by Circe, but who could also become a human whenever a magical comet flew by. While Comet made for a very useful and loyal animal sidekick to Supergirl, who also came with a slew of other abilities including flight, telepathy, and immortality, he also was kind of a creeper. You see, Byron, Comet's original name when he was a centaur, actually falls in love with Supergirl, and when he takes his human form for that short while, he decides to try and woo her. He becomes, I think his name is Bill Starr. He's a rodeo man. He rides the horses. He rides the bulls? What do people ride at rodeos? Bulls? I think bulls, I don't know. I've never been to a rodeo. Someone take me to a rodeo. Byron decides it's best if Supergirl never knows that he is actually also her horse. And I get it, you know, it's complicated. But still, that's pretty messed up, Byron. Like, you make a loyal animal sidekick, but not a very honest human love interest. Although I guess with Comet, you're like, I get a magical horse and I get a boyfriend, which maybe back in the day was like, I don't know, cool for girls of the time. They were like, I want a flying horse that can also turn into my boyfriend. What a weird time. Or maybe that's just what people thought girls wanted, I don't know. Number 8. Tippy Toe. I mean, you gotta give it up for Tippy Toe. Tippy Toe is Doreen Green's, aka Squirrel Girl's main animal sidekick currently in the comics. Before Tippy, it was Monkey Joe, and of course Squirrel Girl can have a whole team of squirrel sidekicks, if she wants to, as that's kind of her thing, communicating with squirrels and convincing them to team up with her. Really convincing many people to team up with her and be her friends. Tippy Toe is often recognized by her bright pink bow. She doesn't have any superpowers per se, but is a very smart, resourceful, and inspiring squirrel. She has demonstrated that she has skills as a leader, leading an entire squirrel army on Doreen's behalf. She's gone up against the likes of AIM and Thanos, and not only survived, but also helped to beat them too. Okay. Number 7. Eagly. One of the most ridiculous but quickly becoming one of the greatest animal sidekicks of all time is Eagly. Eagly is Peacemaker's sidekick in the DCEU. He appears in Peacemaker's HBO Max self-titled series. So far, Eagly has been a great companion to Peacemaker. We've seen Peacemaker use his animal sidekick to distract enemies, and have also seen that Peacemaker doesn't just see Eagly as his crime-fighting partner, but also very much as like his pet and his friend. Eagly also seems to be very well trained and to have a strong bond with Peacemaker. There is no doubt in my mind Eagly would probably do whatever Chris asked of him, and likely would fight just as hard and ruthlessly in Peacemaker's fight for peace. Eagly the Eagle. What a great name. Number 6. Jeff the Landshark. Jeffrey the Landshark is definitely one of my all-time personal favorite animal sidekicks in the Marvel Universe. I honestly would have ranked him higher if there weren't so many star animal sidekicks on this list. For me, in my heart, he is number 1, but I felt weird giving the number 1 spot to Jeff because there's so many other really awesome ones too. Technically, Jeff is a little monster, not quite an animal, but he's animal-like enough for me to put him on this list, so just roll with it. Jeff has been the partner to Gwenpool, Elsa Bloodstone, Deadpool, and most recently Kate Bishop's Hawkeye in his own self-titled series, Marvel Infinity Webtoon series, It's Jeff. Also, if you haven't read It's Jeff by Kelly Thompson and Guri Hiru, you need to pause this video and go scroll through at least one issue on the Marvel Unlimited app. You can start with issue 1 if you want. All the issues are great though, honestly, so you can't really start in a wrong spot. Then you can come back and resume watching. And if you fell in love with that series, like me, there is going to be a follow-up one this year, so don't worry, Marvel has even more Jeff coming your way. Number 5. Red Wing. Red Wing is the animal companion of Sam Wilson. In the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier on Disney+, the Falcon we know as Red Wing in the comics was swapped out for a drone companion, which also shares the name of its 616 counterpart. Red Wing was actually the reason that we thought for a hot minute that Sam himself might be a mutant, and the reason that Sam questioned his origin and with it, his potential power set. You see, Wilson and Red Wing could actually communicate telepathically, which Sam thought could be as a result of latent mutant powers emerging. In reality, their telepathic link was actually a result of the machinations of the evil Red Skull. It turned out this link was created using the Cosmic Cube. To this day though, Sam still has a telepathic link with Red Wing, and Red Wing still fights by Wilson's side, even during his time in the comics as Captain America. And probably his future time as Captain America, since he's probably going to be returning to that role. Yay! Number 4. Toppo. Toppo was Aquaman's ally and pet back in the New Earth continuity. Toppo is an octopus, or at least he was an octopus originally. The Prime Earth version of him looks a bit more like a cuttlefish octo hybrid to me, but based on his tentacles, I think he's still meant to be an octopus, just a much more giant octopus in comparison to the original. Or maybe the original one just got real big in this universe. The New Earth version of Toppo was a purple octopus who was known for his superior dexterity with his tentacles and his super strength. Aside from those more unique traits, he also had all the abilities of a regular octopus. In the Prime Earth continuity, Toppo was called upon to help King Arthur, aka Aquaman, to defend Atlantis, and later on to help him infiltrate it during his exile. He's great. Number 3. Lockjaw. Lockjaw has to be one of the best animal sidekicks around, simply because he also happens to be one of the most powerful out there. Lockjaw is the animal companion of Black Bolt, king of the Inhumans, but he also serves and is a member of the Inhuman royal family. He's a big teleporting doggo who represents a bulldog, and like the other Inhumans, gets his powers from the Terrigen Mists and process of Terrigenesis. Having a teleporting dog would definitely be one of the coolest and most useful things. Teleportation is rad. When it comes to Lockjaw's range and capabilities, by the way, he's a powerful teleporter just in regards to the Marvel Universe, not even just like in regards to animals in the Marvel Universe. He can teleport you all the way into space and can even take you to other dimensions. Number 2. Ace the Bat Hound. Honestly, we could probably just have a list of best doggo sidekicks. There are lots of them in the comic book world. I'm not sure actually if there are more monkeys / gorillas / apes or more dogs, but I bet it's pretty close between those two categories. Ace the Bat Hound wasn't actually really Bruce's dog, but instead was a dog that Batman and Robin found and then decided to adopt to use in a case, getting his help to locate his owner who had been kidnapped. Ace proved to be a heroic dog, and as such Ace became the Bat Hound, until he was returned to his rescued owner. Even after Ace would occasionally be called upon to help Batman in his time of need, with the given excuse of Bruce Wayne claiming he just really liked having the animal around and wanted to have him visit Wayne Manor every now and then because he was good company, which his rightful owner actually agreed to. During Rebirth in the 2016 Batman series, Ace's backstory was changed and the doggo gets a super sweet and heartbreaking origin story. Here the dog suffered trauma at the hands of the Joker, being made into one of his pets and then basically abandoned by the Joker. Alfred pities the dog, who was dressed up as an Ace card when found initially. Alfred takes in and trains Ace, rescuing Ace and turning the doggo into a good boy, intended as a holiday gift for Bruce. Although that part of Ace's story goes right over Bruce's head. He's like, "You didn't get me a gift, Alfred." Alfred's like, "I mean, I just trained this dog and it was a lot of work, but sure, yeah, I forgot to get you a gift, Bruce. Thanks." Number 1. Lockheed. Lockheed obviously is one of my all-time favorite animal companions, and there are surprisingly a lot of them that I was able to reminisce about while writing this list, and a lot of them that I love, many who didn't even make my cut this time around, but honestly who still deserve to. But above them all, in my mind, is Lockheed. Though to be honest, the question of which Lock is the best from Marvel between Lockheed and Lockjaw is a pretty intense debate. Both are great animal sidekicks, and Lockjaw is just super OP as a teleporter in general. Lockheed isn't technically an animal and isn't as powerful as Inhuman's best friend Lockjaw, but what he lacks in power he makes up for in heart and in stealthiness. Lockheed was actually once an agent of S.W.O.R.D. and was basically Abigail Brand's undercover agent who was secretly keeping an eye on the X-Men at the time. However, Lockheed still will probably always remain most loyal to his bestie, Kitty Pryde, aka Captain Kate. He would defend her to the ends of the earth and actually left his homeworld, his civilization, and his fiancée behind just to go on adventures with Kate. He's like a little space dragon, which I guess makes Kate Marvel's mother of dragons? Either Kate or Jubilee I think deserves that title. Or both of them can share it, I'm fine with that. Since Jubilee's son is also literally kind of a dragon. Number 10. Outcast. Who is Hitmonkey really? Well, he's a monkey who's an assassin. Yep, it's really that simple. But how did he become an assassin? Well, that happened as a result of him becoming what he hated the most, really. He was part of a tribe of monkeys who took in a wounded assassin who stumbled kind of into their home. They nursed the assassin back to health, but Hitmonkey, who then was, just known as a nameless monkey, disagreed with this decision. He studied the assassin as he practiced and built back his strength, and ended up adopting his sense of violence to try and basically fight back against the other monkeys whom he disagreed with, because he wanted to protect them, really. As a result, he was banished from his tribe, because they were like, we don't like your violent ways. No, no, no. No, monkey, get out. Number 9. The Assassin. The assassin we see in the trailer who uses snowmen for target practice, that's the assassin who came to his tribe, and who Hitmonkey studied and was kicked out for emulating. In the comics, the assassin is never given a name, but has some kind of spiritual connection to Hitmonkey, and after he dies has unfinished business to carry out with Hitmonkey as his aide. Just like in his origin story from the comics, the assassin in the trailer warns Hitmonkey about following in his footsteps, and after his death returns in spirit form to guide Hitmonkey. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn even more about Hitmonkey as the show goes on, be sure to show your love and show your support by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Vengeance. What turned him into a hitman? Well, the missing part of the origin here is that after Hitmonkey was thrown out and exiled by his tribe, he actually learns while wandering alone that there are men who have come to retrieve the assassin, hunting him down. Hitmonkey attempts to return home to warn his tribe, but he actually arrives too late. They and the assassin they were harboring are all dead. In a fit of rage, Hitmonkey eliminates all the men sent to kill the assassin, hunting down the last one to escape and his commander and eliminating them as well. From there on out, he was sent down a path that would turn him into Hitmonkey. Number 7. Voiced by. Fred Tataskori is an extremely experienced voice actor who has been actively working in the industry for over 20 years. He will be voicing the star of this series, Hitmonkey himself. Seriously though, Tataskori's list of credits is so long that I'm pretty sure if we just ran them all across the screen during this point for you to read, we wouldn't even give you enough time to read them all. He has voiced characters in video games, animated series, cartoons, and English dubs for animes. If you are a hardcore Marvel fan, then you may know him best as the Hulk across the games and animated series that he's voiced in. Hulk is a common character for him to voice. He even voiced the Hulk when the character showed up in the Disney animated series Phineas and Ferb during a crossover episode. Also, if you didn't know that happened, that happened. And if you love Phineas and Ferb, like me, you probably really loved that crossover episode. Number 6. Japanese Macaque. Also known as Nihonzaru in Japanese. Hitmonkey is a Japanese macaque. The Japanese macaque is known for being the northernmost living of all non-human primate species. They are also sometimes referred to as snow monkeys for this same reason, living in places where snow covers the ground for multiple months of the year. Hence why in the trailer we see Hitmonkey and the fellow monkeys living in a snowy region, possibly in the mountains, where they also have access to hot springs. In fact, Japanese macaques are known for enjoying hot springs together as a group, and for rolling up snowballs for fun. It's true, it's a thing. Number 5. First appearance. Hitmonkey in the comics made his first appearance in his own digital series in issue number 1 of Hitmonkey, which was exclusively released on the Marvel Unlimited app. Yeah, Marvel Unlimited has been around since 2010, when this issue was first released. In fact, Marvel Unlimited first became a thing back in 2007. Isn't that crazy? It's been around for so long. Hitmonkey was a character created by Daniel Way and Dalibor Talajic, with the first cover being completed by Frank Cho. The follow-up limited series saw Hitmonkey take on one of Marvel's most deadly and accurate assassins, Bullseye. And straight out of the gate, Hitmonkey was giving him a run for his money. I almost said a run for his monkey money, but I don't think Bullseye has monkey money. What is even monkey money? It's not a thing. Number 4. Lady Bullseye. While in the comics we know that Hitmonkey has faced off with the likes of a deadly villain and also hired assassin Bullseye, in the trailer for the Hulu original animated series about Hitmonkey, there appears another villain who could easily be standing in for him. That would be Lady Bullseye. The question is, how will she be introduced without her male counterpart? Lady Bullseye actually became an assassin herself because of Bullseye, who appeared to save her when she was just a child. Appeared to save her. Appeared being important there. Maki Matsumoto, as she was once known, was a prisoner of the Yakuza. They had despicable plans for her, but were stopped by Bullseye, who had a contract to basically kill her captors. The sight of him killing them in front of her eyes inspired Lady Bullseye to become a killer herself, and so she set down a path that would lead her to becoming the villain she's known for in the comics today. Number 3. Fat Cobra. Speaking of villains that we'll likely see Hitmonkey face off against in the Hulu animated series, another one that shows up in the trailer appears to be none other than Fat Cobra. Fat Cobra is an Iron Fist villain with a long and complex history. He's been an opera singer, a murderer, a villain, a martial arts teacher, the sidekick of Ulysses Bloodstone, fought in multiple wars. You get the idea, he's done it all. His main objective in life was to defeat Xiang Yao, and when he finally accomplished this, he became one of the 7 immortal weapons, which is one of the feats that he's known for today. Fat Cobra's true given name still remains unknown to us, and in fact, much of his own history was forgotten to him. It took a biographer of his to remind him of his own lengthy backstory and all that had happened before. Unlike Lady Bullseye, Fat Cobra is not just a super skilled killer and martial artist, he also possesses chi-based powers that grant him super strength, durability, longevity, healing, senses, and even the power to sometimes teleport. Number 2. Imaginary? Initially when Hitmonkey showed up in New York City causing problems as a hitman, or really a Hitmonkey, Spider-Man did not even believe that he was real. Deadpool tried to explain the legend of Hitmonkey to Spider-Man, but Spider-Man believed that Deadpool was really the one behind all the hits going on. Truly though, he wasn't. He was telling the truth. And Spider-Man found this out the hard way when the duo crossed paths with Hitmonkey himself. You see, shortly after his first appearance, Hitmonkey also popped up in Deadpool series in issue 19. I think that was actually only like a month or so after even his first issue came out for his own comic. It turns out he was in the Big Apple to take out a hit on Deadpool. Hitmonkey proved too tough for both Deadpool and Spider-Man, even teamed up against him. In the end, Hitmonkey succeeded. Well, both of them technically ended up getting blown apart and hurt pretty badly, though of course this is Deadpool, so Wade just ended up healing and then getting tossed in Rikers. Poor Deadpool. Number 1. Ladies Monkey? So apparently hot ladies like monkeys? We find out in Deadpool issue 19 that Hitmonkey is quite the ladies monkey. It's established in canon that there is just something super irresistible about him to the ladies. He arrives at a nightclub in said issue with a bunch of hot ladies who apparently were brought there by Hitmonkey himself, much to the dismay of someone else who is desperately trying to get in without any success. In the same issue, we also then witness a woman leave the side of a man she's chatting with who appears to be about to take her home to go join the Hitmonkey's group of dates. People like monkeys, I guess, or people like hired assassins, or both? I don't know.
Coming in at number 10, we have Matter Eater Lad. One of the best parts of the Peacemaker HBO Max show so far has been seeing all of the out there references and Easter eggs that creator James Gunn has gotten away with making canon within the DCEU. And one of the most interesting references to another hero Peacemaker has met is Matter Eater Lad. A bizarre Silver Age of comics character with the ability to literally eat anything, apparently Peacemaker has allied with this guy on a mission before, and has even seen him eat an entire restaurant. Given his knowledge of exactly how Matter Eater Lad's powers work, it's a fair assumption that Peacemaker would be an ideal candidate if Matter Eater Lad ever needed to be taken out. Just maybe don't let his mouth anywhere near your weaponry, Peacemaker. Coming in at number 9, we've got Frank Castle, aka the Punisher. Although they may come from different comic book universes, comparisons between the Punisher and Peacemaker are pretty easy to make, with both characters having a warped perspective on justice compared to many superheroes, and both characters also having a particular love for firearms. The thing that sets these two characters apart, however, is that Frank Castle still has a line he won't cross when it comes to cleaning up crime, and would never willingly hurt a child. Peacemaker, on the other hand, is supposedly so committed to his cause that he doesn't care how many men, women, or children he'd need to kill for peace. And this willingness to cross a taboo line that even the Punisher wouldn't cross might just bring Peacemaker out on top. Coming in at number 8, we have Vigilante. While Vigilante and Peacemaker might be an odd pair of friends with a weird but accepting relationship on the show, in the comics, they're usually portrayed as much more straightforward rivals. Possessing no superpowers but a master in all sorts of weaponry and martial arts styles, Vigilante and Peacemaker are usually pretty evenly matched when they're positioned against one another by opposing forces. But given the extra abilities given to him by his variety of helmets, Peacemaker has just a few more tricks up his sleeve than his sometimes partner, sometimes rival. Coming in at number 7, we have Batmite. Another character made canon in the DCEU by an offhanded reference, Batmite is a troublesome imp from the same fifth dimension as the Superman villain Mr. Mxyzptlk. Except this guy is a huge Batman fanboy and loves to be a giant nuisance to the Dark Knight. Given Peacemaker's annoyance of being compared to such a tiny and infuriating character, it seems likely that he'd try to find a helmet specifically to take on a fifth-dimensional villain, which sounds ludicrous, but we've already seen that Peacemaker's father has space warping technology in his secret supervillain bunker. Whatever the case, Peacemaker's brand of violence would definitely be a shocking change of pace for the character of Batmite, so maybe the imp should watch his back after getting mentioned on the show. Coming in at number 6, we have Aquaman. As a superhero, Aquaman was a bit of a joke character for a long time before more recent incarnations have begun to successfully inject just the right amount of seriousness to the character. However, that doesn't stop Peacemaker from saying some not safe for work things about Aquaman on the show, and given both John Cena and Jason Momoa's amount of muscle, that would be one hell of a showdown to see. When asked in a promotional interview if Peacemaker could beat Aquaman in a fight, John Cena replied that Aquaman's fitness was one of the only superheroes that gave him pause. However, given how the Peacemaker team was able to handle a gorilla in last week's episode, maybe animal superpowers aren't the best defense against a hero as violent as Peacemaker. Coming in at number 5, we have Rick Flagg. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen James Gunn's The Suicide Squad yet, but one of the better twists of the movie and the reason Peacemaker's solo series was such a surprise is because Peacemaker was such a fantastic villain in the film. Ordered by Amanda Waller to prevent information on Starro from getting out to the public, Peacemaker is forced by his twisted moral code to fight and eventually brutally kill a hero he admired, Rick Flagg, who is disgusted that he got beaten by a man such as Peacemaker. It's a pretty devastating death scene in an otherwise pretty comedic movie, and unlike other hypotheticals on this list, we got to see all too well that Peacemaker can definitely beat Rick Flagg. Coming in at number 4, we've got what's sure to be a controversial pick with Spider-Man. No, these two characters have never crossed over and interacted before, but if the corporate overlords ever allowed it, I'm not sure I would bet on Spidey. Peter Parker would obviously not agree with Peacemaker's brand of justice, given how often he gets into conflicts with other violent vigilantes like Punisher and Daredevil, and would likely try to defeat Peacemaker if they ever met. However, unlike most heroes, Peacemaker wouldn't be startled by the fact that Spider-Man is just a teenager. As we mentioned before, Peacemaker is willing to fight and kill anyone in the name of peace. And this means the usual moments that older members of the Avengers would have of expressing worry at Spider-Man's youth would mean absolutely nothing to Peacemaker. So, hope your spider sense still works, Peter. Otherwise, Peacemaker is coming for you. Coming in at number 3, we have Batman. Unfortunately, due to YouTube's monetization policies, I can't repeat any of the colorful language that Peacemaker uses to describe Batman on the show, but it's safe to say that Peacemaker isn't a fan, whether out of genuine dislike or because of jealousy at the fact that Batman is apparently a much more beloved figure in the DCEU now. Whatever the case, Batman actually would have a hard time dealing with an individual like Peacemaker because of the vast difference in their vigilante styles. Batman refuses to kill, whereas Peacemaker is all about killing in the most over-the-top and gratuitous ways possible. Whereas Batman would be trying to capture Peacemaker alive, Peacemaker would be willing to blow up an entire building just to fry the bat. And while you can argue about the morals of being a superhero, Peacemaker's brutality just might take the win here. Coming in at number 2, we have Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. In a way, the modern incarnation of Peacemaker can be seen as a commentary on patriotic superheroes like Captain America, showing just how terrifying someone willing to do literally anything for their country or ideology would be if they also dressed up in a colorful helmet and costume. Whereas Captain America has been shown to become introspective on what justice actually means, and whether following his country is always the right option, Peacemaker is Cap's patriotism taken to the extreme, and who knows just how far he'd take that in a fight if the two of them ever had to meet. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the one and only Superman. I once again can't repeat what Peacemaker said about Superman on the show, but needless to say, these two would likely not get along. And while it seems easy to say that someone like Peacemaker could never hope to even injure Superman, the DCEU might actually beg to differ. The Suicide Squad movie makes a big point of noting how similar in skills and backstories both Peacemaker and Bloodsport are. And while Bloodsport ultimately wins their final shootout, both of them appear to essentially have perfect aim. And with Bloodsport being confirmed to have been locked up in the first place for putting Superman in the ICU with a special bullet, who knows just how badly Peacemaker would mess up Kal-El if he ever got his hands on some kryptonite ammunition.
Number 10, Angela. Angela is just confusing when it comes to her history. She was basically retconned into being Thor's sister, but originally was not even part of the Marvel world and was a character from Spawn. Neil Gaiman and Todd McFarlane both created her together, but the two ended up in a legal battle over the rights to the character, which Gaiman won. Neil Gaiman then sold her rights to Marvel. Angela is a half-angel who it later turned out was Thor's half-sister, but who had not known of her true heritage, nor had her parents Odin and Freya known of her survival, believing that she died as a baby. In honor of Neil Gaiman, Marvel also had an alternate version of her become the main character of a follow-up, Secret Wars 1602 Angela the Witch Hunter, which makes sense considering that Neil Gaiman himself made the 1602 reality. Number 9. Groot. He might not seem weird now that he's an MCU success story, becoming famous alongside his fellow weirdo hero team in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but when you think about it, Groot is a pretty strange character. He's basically a sentient tree who can move around and only speak 3 words. I am Groot. Though even more bizarrely through these 3 words, he seems to be speaking a whole other language. Initially, Groot wasn't even a hero. When he first was introduced in the 1960s, he was an alien tree invader seeking to experiment on the human race. However, in the 2000s, he would end up becoming repurposed like other members of the MCU Guardians team and end up becoming known as one of the heroes. So his whole history is actually pretty weird too. Now it's been retconned that his original appearance wasn't even him, but another Groot. He could also communicate using more than 3 words in that original appearance. And before we move on to this next spot, if you love Groot as much as I love Groot, as much as we all love Groot, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help. Number 8. Eye-Boy. He's got a higher level perception cause he's covered in eyeballs. It's Eye-Boy. Eye-Boy might seem like a strange mutant and hero, but I cannot deny that I downright love him. Even though, yeah, he's kind of a weird one to look at and to have thought up, I guess. Eye-Boy has since been revealed to have more than just enhanced vision though. He can see things that others can't, basically seeing through to other planes at times, and also seeing and understanding the world around him on an atomic or microscopic level due to his inhuman level of sight. It's a pretty specific power, but it actually can be super useful given the right circumstance. Number 7. Doorman. For some of the weirdest heroes, we can look to the Great Lakes Avengers, who are in general known for being a much more wacky and often eccentric team of heroes whose powers are oddly specific in a way that usually doesn't seem on the surface to be all too useful. Doorman got a power upgrade after his death, but before that his powers weren't really that extraordinary, at least not in how they were presented initially. Also, he was struck with the bizarre name of Doorman, so that probably could have been better. Doorman was so named named because he could use his powers to act as a doorway for people, allowing them to pass through solid barriers. This, however, is actually because of Doorman's connection to the Dark Dimension, which he uses to allow people to pass through him, effectively teleporting them through barriers via the Dark Force. His attachment to the Dark Force also gave him a slew of other useful abilities similar to magic or Kitty Pryde. So actually, although Doorman sounds weird, he's actually pretty cool. Number 6. Frogman. Frogman is Eugene Patillo, who set out to redeem his father's name and repurpose his villainous persona, Leapfrog, into something heroic. Instead of being Leapfrog, Eugene then became Frogman. The suit he wears contains electrically powered spring coils, which allow him to leap higher than average heights, though not anything crazy, no leaping tall buildings in a single bound or anything like that. Frogman had to team up with the pretty reluctant Spider-Man, and in the end even managed to stop a villain, albeit accidentally. This bolstered his confidence, and he has since tried to pursue a life as a heroic vigilante, though many of his successes have less to do with any skills and really more to do with luck. Number 5. Skin. Skin is part of the Gen X mutants. I know what you're thinking, Amanda, another mutant on this list? Why all the mutants? Well, what can I say? We have a lot of mutant heroes, and a lot of mutants tend to get some of the weirdest powers out there. Also, I just like weird mutants, so I have a lot of weird knowledge about them. It's just how it goes. Skin's power is that he can stretch his skin. He basically has a few feet of extra skin which he can manipulate as need be, giving him some minor shapeshifting abilities as well as enhanced durability. Other than being a little gross, the weird thing about Skin is that his powers don't allow him to stretch his body in general, only his epidermis. His skin is affected when it comes to his powers. His skin also tends to be presented as remaining loose after stretching, so it might stretch well, but it doesn't necessarily have the elasticity, the bounce back that you normally expect when you're talking about skin having, good stretch. Just usually you're like, skin stretchy, and then it like goes back. No, not in this case. It's unfortunate, I think. But oh well, he's accepted it. I like that. There's also a fun story where Skin actually learned how to make himself look normal, but it just takes so much energy. He's like, dude, I'm just gonna be like this and it's fine. Which I love. Just love yourself. That's what it's all about. Number 4. Maggot. Maggot is one of the weirdest mutants out there, although strangely enough, he isn't weird because he's not powerful. He actually can be pretty powerful. He's got power, but from a bizarre source. Maggot has 2 sentient maggots who live inside his digestive tract named Eenie and Meanie, but who can painfully leave his body via his stomach in order to go eat pretty much anything in our world, and after doing so and returning to Maggot's stomach, pass on this nourishment and energy to him, enhancing his strength and his durability. His maggots can also potentially be used like kind of weird attack dogs, where Maggot could, in theory, threaten to devour those who get in his way, although it wouldn't be very heroic of him to do so, of course. I can't help it. Every time I'm thinking of powers, I'm like, what is a villainous way that you could use this which would be so good? That's where my mind goes. Number 3. The Almighty Dollar. The Almighty Dollar is J. Pennington Pennypacker, a minor superhero who appears alongside his fellow heroes on the team, the Happy Campers. They likely get their name from the fact that they all received their powers while attending what Pennypacker thought was a self-esteem camp, but was actually a front for scientists looking to experiment with a device that would grant those exposed to it superpowers. Pennypacker gained the ability to fire pennies from his wrists, which wouldn't be very useful today in Canada, where pennies we don't even make them even anymore, and we all round up our cents. But it was good enough to help him and his fellow campmates rise up and escape their captors, so guess it's not that bad. Number 2. Dupe. Unsurprisingly, yes, a lot of our weird heroes are going to come from the mutant side of things and the X-Men team. Although I don't know if it's ever actually been cemented exactly really what Dupe is at all, never mind if he's truly a mutant. Dupe has to be one of the weirdest characters of all time, especially when it comes to his storylines. Dupe is also weirdly romantic for a floating green alien language speaking creature that was possibly created by the government as a result of an experiment. Why is he on the X-Men again? Yet also, despite this origins, he somehow has a mother. Dupe has been seen having romantic relationships with other characters like Warbird, and even at one point proposed to Kitty Pryde. Kitty did not marry him, just so you know. Number 1, Phone Ranger. The Phone Ranger is about as weird as he sounds. Armed with alien space tech that can tap into any communication technology, A.G. Bell, the phone repairman, decided to become a superhero. While he may be a ridiculous looking product of the 1980s, Phone Ranger actually also comes equipped with a bunch of communications technology, which also allows him to utilize and integrate with any other comms tech that he comes across. Basically, he's like a spokesperson for phone tapping, trying to make the whole idea of it seem more heroic. Needless to say, Phone Ranger has only been featured in a few issues of Marvel Comics overall, and hasn't been seen since the first superhero Civil War, and I don't think we'll be seeing him anytime soon. But maybe, I don't know. Who wants to write a Phone Ranger series out there? Any writers interested in that?
Coming in at number 10, we've got Monster Girl. Once known as Monster Woman, this superhero has abilities that remind me a bit of Benjamin Button meets the Incredible Hulk. You heard me right, we've got a shapeshifter who can transform into an insanely powerful, monstrous version of herself, but each time she does it, she de-ages a little bit. So after a whole bunch of fights, the once adult hero became a teen who was then progressively become even younger. What some folks will do to fight crime. Although I'd say some people wouldn't see that reverse lifespan as such a bad thing, right? Especially if at some point you could hang up your transforming days and just live life out as a younger version of yourself. Her origin story is especially weird too. She had at one point been on a class trip to Europe soaking in the culture. During this expedition, she met a boy and fell in love, eventually sleeping with him. His grandmother saw them do the deed and did not approve. Instead of yelling at her grandson or telling the monster girl to get out of town, she decided to curse her instead. By casting a spell on a strand of her hair, the old woman imbued Monster Girl with her troll-like transformative appearance. As a young lass, this really upset her, especially as she could not control her powers at first. These days, the transformation is better understood and she has more refined control over it. Weirder still, she managed to mate with a female Flaxen while in her monster form, who would later give birth to a child. There's a lot going on, obviously. Coming in at number 9, we've got Donald Ferguson. Now, who does this guy remind you of? Be honest, I want to gauge your genuine reaction. I'll give you a few seconds to lock in your answer. Alright? He looks like Bobby Hill. Yep, now you'll never be able to look at this high-ranking member of the Global Defense Agency the same way again. Hell, it could very well be the son of Hank and Peggy Hill, all grown up and with some cybernetic enhancements and an identity change. The haircut, the way he carries himself, everything. Plus, get this, there's an episode of King of the Hill where Bobby is reading a knockoff Invincible comic called Unvincible. I don't know if that means King of the Hill exists in an alternate version of our current universe, or if they're in the Invincible universe and somebody's made a comic subtly ripping off some heroes. Either way, Ferguson raises a lot of questions and gives a lot of folks weird deja vu. And also, he's full of robotic weapons and wants to karate chop kaiju. Good for him. Coming in at number 8, we've got Best Tiger. Not Good Tiger, Best Tiger. What an absolute legend. A play on the blind swordsman, Best Tiger wears a blindfold over his eyes whenever he fights crime. And he is always fighting crime. Even if it doesn't look like he's fighting crime, he's fighting crime. This green and black clad gunslinger can hit any target from pretty much any distance with little to no effort. He once took out 12 targets with one ricocheting bullet. He's just so very intense. It's hard to say what his personality is at all because he's so committed to taking out bad guys and solving mysteries. It seems to be all he does, which for all the good guys tend to be pretty helpful. However, he's not the most fun to hang out with, nor does he provide too much in the way of interesting character development. But what he can do is determine that someone was taken over by a ghostly villain by the sound of wind whistling through her freshly shaved pits. Nobody does it like Best Tiger, and that's probably for the best. As long as he keeps doing Best Tiger stuff anyways. Coming in number 7, we've got Space Racer. There aren't too many folks out there with weapons that can kill Viltrumites. Space Racer is one of the lucky few, and his weapon does a whole lot more than taking out super powerful aliens. It can also shoot right through just about anything with crazy beams of power, and if anyone tries to take it from him, it'll end up right back in his hand. Pretty sweet, right? Plus, he's got a wicked space motorcycle, which is the reason behind his name. For ages, he would just whip through the galaxy. That is, until he fought Omni-Man and ended buried under rocks in an asteroid belt. 100 years after that fateful fight, Omni-Man returned with a new request and managed to yank Space Racer out of the rocks. He might not be the most outlandish character going, but where else are you going to find a space motorcycle riding, insanely powerful magic gunslinging green dude who can survive 100 years without food? Coming in at number 6, we've got D.A. Sinclair. Super smart Ivy League types tend to be a bit much, eh? Well, most folks in academia have nothing on D.A. Sinclair. He believes that human failings can be corrected through engineering and that folks can just be taken and changed into something else if it helps him achieve his goals. Of course, this leads him to kidnapping all sorts of folks and performing experiments on them in order to perfect his Reanimen. These recreated humans were mind controlled by Sinclair, with the first one ending up suicidal after realizing what it had become. Jeez, DA, did you have to do him like that? On top of being a genius level intellect and a lunatic to boot, he actually ends up working with the good guys in the end, as his inventions are adopted by the Global Defense Agency, so I guess good on him. That still doesn't really make up for spitting in the face of the sanctity of human life, but hey, he essentially embodies the idea that if you're gonna make an omelet, you gotta crack a few eggs. Coming in at number 5, Alan the Alien. For years, folks on Earth assumed that Alan was an enemy. He would appear every 3 years or so and fight whoever came out of the woodwork. However, it didn't seem like he was down to kill anyone, and nobody could take him out themselves. Well, as it turned out, our one-eyed friend wasn't here just to fight a bunch of people, he was there to test the defenders of Earth, among other planets. After taking on Omni-Man for ages, he got to go head-to-head with Invincible. Instead of trying to end him though, Earth's greatest hope decided to talk with the extraterrestrial being. In doing so, they realized they had nothing to worry about when it came to dealing with each other. From then on, Alan proved to be an excellent friend and ally. He played a major role in all sorts of conflicts, especially when it came to dealing with the ever-dangerous Viltrumites. With all sorts of classic superpowers from insane strength, supernatural speed, healing abilities, and more, Alan is a force to be reckoned with. Plus, he has the innate ability to lead folks wherever he goes, which comes in handy. And to add in a little bit of extra fun, he's voiced by none other than Seth Rogen in the animated series. Nice. Coming in at number 4, Science Dog. Hell yeah, just listen to that name, how can you not love it? Science Dog is exactly what he sounds like, a superhero dog with powers thanks to science. It's so simple, so beautiful. Funnily enough, Science Dog is a well-known comic in the world of Invincible. In fact, it was Mark's favorite superhero growing up, and there are plenty of references to our experimental canine throughout the comic. Even though he's a fictional character in this universe, and even ends up becoming Seance Dog in the Amazon adaptation, he does make an interesting appearance in the comics. An alien decides to disguise himself as the altered Scotty and contacts Mark, asking for help saving his planet. A great disguise for sure. So even though Science Dog in his actual canon comic form doesn't make any direct impact on the Invincible universe, there is plenty to enjoy about his presence. Coming in number 3, we've got Wolfman. Usually werewolves are portrayed as the bad guy. They stalk the night, hunting unsuspecting prey and howling at the moon. From time to time, they'll leave a poor sap alive who will at some point become a werewolf too. It's a classic horror tale for sure. There are exceptions though. Teen Wolf is one, those werewolves from What We Do in the Shadows could be another, and Wolfman could end up on that list too. Gary Hampton, CEO of Hampton Industries, was out camping with his family when what seemed to be a bear attacked him. He healed up pretty quick, and it became very apparent that he was a much more supernatural creature. Discovering that he was now a lycanthrope, Gary decided that instead of giving into primal instincts, he would use his newfound powers for good. For a while, he teamed up with a vampire named Zechariah, and eventually Wolfman found his way into the Invincible universe. That's right, after aiding Adam Eve in a fight, he joined forces with Invincible and a bunch of other heroes to take down the Emperor. Isn't that fun when things work out like that? Coming in at number 2, we've got Angstrom Levy. Just looking at this guy paints a pretty vivid picture, right? This is a mad scientist who has seen way more than he probably should have. He figured out that he had the ability to travel between parallel universes and worked up his proficiency over time. Eventually, he managed to find out about all the alternate Angstrom levies and recruited them in one way or another. Then, using the brain power of the Mahler twins, he had machines constructed that would download the knowledge of all its counterparts into his own brain. As it was happening though, Invincible crashed through the wall and started fighting the Mahlers. Levy hopped out of his machine to save Invincible, but that caused it to melt down. It exploded, and although the transfer was technically complete, Levy was horribly disfigured and his personality was irreversibly altered. Now he is a violent, super smart maniac with a hate-on for Invincible. Poor guy, but he kind of brought it on himself. And finally, at number 1, we've got Sequids. Parasitic alien cephalopods are never going out of style, are they? These creatures take over people's minds and then connect to a hive mind of sorts. Upon arriving on Mars, Invincible realizes that the human astronauts there are susceptible to these horrid little things' influence. They want nothing more than to conquer, which could be very bad news if they ever made it to Earth. However, as nasty and dangerous as they are, they're unable to bond with Martians or Viltrumites. So they're a big pain and cause a lot of problems for astronauts, but can't be too big of a threat, right?
Number 10, The Ghost of Christmas Present. From the 90s through the 2000s, Marvel has been publishing a heartwarming Marvel holiday special, the perfect stocking stuffer, if you don't mind your comics rolled up and shoved in like a tube. In 1991, they released the first holiday special, host to a variety of wonderful Christmas stories, including 'Twas a Midwinter's Night, and A Spider Carol, an especially cute one called Ghost of Christmas Present. In that story, a gang of thugs kidnaps a blind 4-year-old boy from a wealthy household on Christmas Eve, hoping to exchange him for ransom money. The boy manages to escape near a graveyard, but one of the thugs finds him and gives him a bloody nose. At this point, Ghost Rider arrives on the scene and takes the thug and his buddies out with a chain. Now, being blind, the boy mistakes Ghost Rider for good old Santa, since his chain sounds like Christmas bells and he's wearing leather boots, which the boy touches. The other thugs show up, remarking how this crazy guy must think it's Halloween, and they threaten to look under his costume. Ghost Rider then treats them all to his penance stare, and afterwards returns the boy to his home. The rider motors off into the night, and the boy mistakes the sounds of his hell cycle for hungry reindeer. It's a nice little holiday heartwarmer that's surprisingly simple and fun.
Number 9, The Silent Night of Batman. And before we move on to our next point, just a reminder to show some of that holiday cheer to us by clicking that like button. It really does help us out, and we also hope you have a great holidays, so like back. We all know how much Batman loves to sing, and if you don't know, you're about to find out in this holiday story. The Silent Night of Batman is a story that appears in issue 219 of Batman. Here, Commissioner Jim Gordon ends up recruiting Batman not to help fight any crime on Christmas Eve, but instead to lend his deep vocals to some Christmas carol singing. Batman agrees because he loves a good carol, but also plans on leaving as soon as the first crime of the night is committed. And this is Gotham, so he's sure that is bound to happen at some point. But weirdly enough, it never does. Instead, we just get little vignettes into some of the kinder moments happening through the city. Even Batman is surprised at the end when he realizes he spent the whole night singing because zero crime was committed that night. It's holiday magic!
Number 8, The Ghost of Christmas. This bit of holiday mayhem is less of a heartwarming tale, as Deadpool tends to massacre everything he comes into contact with, including the Christmas season. This story showcases Deadpool continuing his endless rampage through the Ideaverse, killing beloved literary icons. And the story opens with Deadpool appearing before Ebenezer Scrooge and shooting the crap out of the Ghost of Christmas Future. Deadpool calls him McDuck, referencing the Disney spin on this classic tale, and then just totally blasts him one. It's seriously only the first page. After this, he's off to his next tale, Frankenstein. Deadpool stops to kill creatures from the Jungle Book and from The Little Mermaid. It's not really very festive at all. Everyone dies. Classic Deadpool.
Number 7, A Christmas Underground. This story comes to us from neither Marvel or DC. Instead, I thought I'd feature a story from another awesome publisher, Dark Horse. A Christmas Underground is a story from the Hellboy Christmas Special Collection and tells a peculiar but very compelling story wherein Hellboy is mistaken by a dying woman for Father Christmas and promises to help deliver a small tin box to her missing daughter Annie. The story features talking rats and statues in addition to monsters and an army of the undead. All that good Hellboy strangeness, and sees Hellboy venture below a cemetery in order to find Annie and deliver the box to her. I just love that the big red Hellboy was mistaken for Santa. As weird as it is, it's also like super weirdly fitting.
Number 6, A Miracle a Few Blocks Down from 34th Street. In this story from Marvel, we discover that Santa is actually a mutant. Actually, the most powerful mutant ever, according to Cerebro. The X-Men are trimming the tree in their base when Cerebro alerts them to the presence of an incredibly powerful mutant in Manhattan. Our heroes arrive at Rockefeller Center and meet Santa in the flesh. The Man in Red also turns the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants into toys and wipes the X-Men's memories of ever having met him. Santa has actually popped up in many other Marvel comics as well, and he's got some serious powers as a mutant, including reality manipulation, immortality, teleportation. He sees you when you're sleeping, he knows when you're awake. He can even manipulate gravity and eat an entire planet's worth of cookies in one night. This is a really nice little story, and I personally really got a kick out of the idea of Santa as a mutant. He should just be a full-time member of the X-Men. or maybe just a seasonal member.
Number 5. The Punisher Red Xmas. See, I'm not the only one who says Xmas. Frank Castle is right there with me. He's got me. I don't know why, but for some reason every time I say Xmas to people they tell me it's like not a thing. So yeah, if you're also out there and you say it too, let me know in the comments. This comic story comes to us from Marvel and starts off throwing us into a violent kind of weird within the first page. But what else would you expect from the Punisher? Here we see Santa gun down some criminals seemingly for not donating to the poor and for not believing in Santa Claus. Of course, we later discover that this was none other than Frank Castle in disguise, awaiting his moment of justice. The huge and glaring problem is that Frank gunned these men down in the streets, out in the open, dressed as freaking Santa, which means a child who happens to witness this grisly scene immediately after clutches to their mother, looking horrified and asking, why? That kid is definitely traumatized now for life. Good job, Punisher.
Number 4. Down and Out in Forest Hills. In this classic holiday drama, Pete and MJ are evicted from their condo right in the middle of the Christmas season. Pete considers asking a bunch of people he knows if he and MJ could stay with them, as he's kind of ashamed to go and stay with Aunt May after having been on his own for so long. Peter stops by the cemetery to visit Uncle Ben's grave, wishing that he was around so he could ask him for advice. Just then, a burglary in progress nearby is interrupted by a security guard, and the bad guys freak out and take the store's Santa hostage. Spidey jumps on top of their armored car, causing it to crash near the cemetery. One of the thugs comes out and aims his pistol at Spidey, but surprisingly, the mall Santa sneaks up behind him and whacks the robber out with a sack of money. Just knocks him out cold. Changing back into his civilian clothes, Peter notices Aunt May has happened to come by and visit Ben's grave as well. And talking, she reveals that she visits his grave every Christmas. Peter realizes what a fool he's been and accepts Aunt May's offer to let him and MJ stay with her over the holidays. It's a heartwarming and wholesome little story and a great part of Spidey's original run.
Number 3. How the Gronk Stole Christmas. Why are there just so many bizarre Christmas comics? And why don't comic publishers still make these? Do they still make these? Am I just missing out every year? So many of these are from the 90s, to be honest. And this holiday story from Mighty Thor issue 444 is no exception. Published in 1992. The early 90s were such a weirdly edgy time. Also a time where $5 was a lot to spend on a gift. Remember that? Remember when $5 got you so much stuff? This story from Mighty Thor sees Eric Masterson as Thor take on the Gronk, who, you guessed it, is basically the jacked up version of the Grinch. The beginning of the comic adds that the story is dedicated to Dr. Seuss, acknowledging that yes, the characters featured here are definitely inspired by The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. In this case though, we have the misunderstood Gronk who stole presents. The story also features Cindy Lou and the dog Max, and ends happily when Eric is offered a place at the Avengers mansion and is thrown a surprise holiday party, yay! Where the staff at the comic finish off by wishing everyone a Merry Christmas. I really wish I had a stocking that was big enough for comics. That would be great.
Number 2. A Coal in My Stocking. This story comes from DC's New Year's Evil, which was actually just published last year. This story follows Black Adam as he flies deep into the North Pole, defeating some wizards and passing through a mystical door that takes him to an ancient place where he meets a great wizard in red robes named Niklaus. Adam defeats the wizard, who then begs for mercy in exchange for anything Adam wants. He pulls out a map of the world, points to his homeland, and demands that the children of his home receive Christmas gifts this year, saying stockings will be filled, adding that if it must be, he will accept a lump of coal in his own. Black Adam was moved to action by a refugee, a little girl in his home who came from an orphanage in New York City, and she explains Christmas to him, setting the previously mentioned events into motion. It's a wholesome and cute little story and gives Black Adam's character a lovely bit of depth.
Number 1. Lobo Paramilitary Christmas Special. This one takes me back to a very intense holiday themed D&D campaign I played once. I actually really missed that group that I was playing with at the time as well. It even included a friend of mine who I haven't seen or played an RPG with in ages because he's actually in the acclaimed Canadian series Letterkenny, true story. In our campaign, much like in this story, we took on Santa Claus. Basically, we were Lobo. That's right. Lobo's Paramilitary Christmas Special is all about Lobo accepting a contract put out by the jealous Easter Bunny who wants to see Santa Claus and his merry jolly holiday die at the hands of a hired killer. Enter Lobo. Never mind Lobo fighting Santa Claus, this issue also includes a brutally graphic scene where Lobo murders and blows apart a whole army of Santa's elves. Nothing says Merry Christmas like dismemberment. I'm ready for the holidays now. Yay. Number 10. What if Aunt May was a mutant with claws? I just love how this is posed as a scenario where Aunt May just uses her claws in place of the good old-fashioned parental guilt trip. Aunt May is having dinner with her nephew Peter and his girlfriend Mary Jane. She cooked for them and they immensely enjoyed their meal, but when she offers them a pie for dessert, they both insist they're just too full and they cannot eat another bite. They offer that after their date, they're going to see a show, they might have a slice upon their return. But this isn't good enough for Aunt May. Fortunately, in this story, she has Wolverine claws, which she snicks out and uses to intimidate the youngsters into postponing their date so they can stay for dessert. She uses her claws, of course, to also slice the pie, because Aunt May. What else is she gonna use them for? Although I would really love an alternate world where Aunt May just was Wolverine. Or I was posing earlier an idea of an alternate world where everyone is Aunt May. What about that world? Number 9. What if Iron Man Demon in an armor? Remember that time Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom swapped bodies? Oh yeah, that's the thing that happened in this What If special out of 2010. Here both brilliant minds were roommates in college and Victor used a machine on Stark to swap minds with him. Stark's memories were also wiped, so he never knew he had been Tony Stark. Victor, as Tony, used his millions to create his own inventions, but ultimately ended up ruining the Stark name with less than noble pursuits and his own greed. On the other hand, Stark as Victor succumbed to alcoholism but recovered and then created Doom Industries, a brilliant company responsible for its own Doom armor suits and technological advancements. In the end, Doom in Stark's body attempted to attack Doom Industries, but was apprehended by Stark in Doom's body. He then revealed the swap that had taken place years earlier and bargained to swap back in exchange for his freedom, but Stark in Doom's body is just like, nah thanks, I kinda have the better company and life now in your body. I like this body. Why would I want to be Tony now when I can just be the honorable Dr. Doom? Good point. Good point. Why would you ever want to be Tony Stark when you could be Dr. Doom? That's the real question. That'd be awesome. Number 8. What if Sergeant Fury had fought World War II in outer space? This story offers a glimpse into an alternate reality where World War II was fought in space? This story takes place in an alternate reality where instead of being divided by eastern and western fronts, the battle is divided between beta and alpha sectors. As such, we get to see Sergeant Nick Fury fighting alongside the Howling Commandos in outer space, smoking a cigar even while wearing a space helmet. Seems like a bad idea, but it's Nick Fury, so that's what he's gonna do. It's also explained that we have Da Vinci's inventions to thank for this early technological advancement, which led to us getting to outer space in the 1940s, which is maybe the best bit of exposition explanation in the book, and just in general that I've read. It's pretty ridiculous. Oh, and of course we also get to watch our heroes fight aliens, because space. Number 7. What if the world knew Daredevil was blind? Yeah, this is a weird story, especially because it kind of implies that if Daredevil wasn't blind and didn't have superpowers, his life would actually be better or easier. As though, like, you know, if you're blind, your life is going to be terrible, but if you're not blind, your life is great, which I don't think is true. That's not how that works. I mean, he's also still got an enemy in Wilson Fisk, I'd assume, so I just feel like this is a big oversimplification. In this story, the world finds out that Daredevil is blind, and as a result, those close to him begin to piece together that Daredevil is in fact Matt Murdock, because you know, Matt Murdock is blind. Get it? He then ends up having his sight restored via an operation, unmasks, and lives happily ever after with Karen, trading his heroic initials of DD for DA and becoming the new district attorney of New York. He's swapping it out. I also love how Karen's like, oh, thank goodness you're not a superhero, now we can get married. Number 6. What if Black Bolt talked in his sleep? This is a very short story, and I think you can imagine how it ends if you are familiar with the Inhuman King known as Black Bolt, but it's also just very humorously written. You can find this single-page story near the back of issue 9 of What If Volume Number 2. Apparently when Black Bolt eats pineapple pizza before bed, it has disastrous consequences. Also, good to know what kind of pizza Black Bolt likes. I personally also love pineapple on my pizza, but I feel like that just lets you know if someone's cool or not. Oh, the strange things that you learn about people and pizza. If Black Bolt talked in his sleep all the time, the Inhumans would have a lot of rebuilding to do all the time. I also just like how resigned some of these Inhumans humans are in that last panel. Like, oh, he did it again. I guess I'm just gonna sleep on some rubble for the rest of the night. That's just how it is. Shucks. And only Medusa is the one that's mad. She's like, baby, I told you not to eat that pizza. This always happens. Number 5. What if Wolverine had a styrofoam skeleton? Issue 100 is just one of the best for some real weird stories. One of the stories it offers us is only told through a mock-up cover, but it's so good it's just gotta be mentioned because the cover is just too good. It also is presented beside another great mock-up cover offering an alternate story where Peter Parker became Sheep Boy instead of Spider-Man. Sheep Boy. I love it. In the Wolverine mock-up, we're offered an alternate Logan who goes by the codename Wolverwimp. He is cowering on the front cover, about to have his styrofoam skeleton ripped out by Magneto, a mean little girl. I also just love the reference to Wolverine also losing his nose when he lost his adamantium that's on there. Mock-up what if stories are actually the best. I wish we got a full story of this. Someone write that, please. Number 4. What if Iron Man was trapped in the time of King Arthur? The craziest thing about this what if is that it's actually kind of an alternate retelling of a real-life main continuity story where Iron Man was transported to Camelot in medieval times with Dr. Doom and managed to escape. Although this story offers the alternative of, what if he wasn't able to escape and only Dr. Doom got out? You can find it in What If Volume 1, Issue 33. The answer to the question is that Iron Man would be drained of energy, get frustrated in realizing that, he couldn't rebuild a time machine, and ends up becoming Sir Anthony of Iron, an Iron Knight at King Arthur's Round Table. In fact, he uses his suit to help protect the realm from the evil Morgana, defeating her, but in the ensuing battle is unable to prevent King Arthur from becoming mortally wounded. With his dying breath, Arthur makes Sir Anthony his successor, even though they kinda just met, but it's fine I guess. Which means that the Anthony of Iron Man's past, his past self from the future, would probably be really weirded out if he ever read any stories of Camelot. He'd be like, Sir Anthony of Iron became the king. Wait, I'm Iron Man. What? Maybe that was actually his inspiration in the alternate reality to create the Iron Man suit. And now Tony's just stuck in like a time loop. Number 3. What if Wolverine was the Lord of Vampires? In this story, Wolverine becomes the new Lord of Vampires, which is kinda weird considering what we know of Wolverine's healing factor now, but this is also obviously an alternate reality and a story that was written in the 90s, so there's that. Here Wolverine is transformed into a vampire by Dracula. It also features a sweet vampire hunter version of Punisher who is sporting Doctor Strange's cape, and I personally think that the Punisher looks amazing in that cape. So lavish. I just want him to wear capes all the time now. In the end, Punisher is defeated, but Wolverine has a crisis of conscience and ends up flipping to the side of good once more, killing himself and all the other vampire supes and villains he'd made at the same time. And for some reason, Doc Ock's body and tentacles turn to dust. Now, shouldn't his tentacles be okay though? Because they're not made of his tissue. Also, I love when people are like, you're dust, and all their clothes become dust. I'm like, shouldn't their clothes be fine? Anyways, it's a small technical thing, but it bothers me. Number 2. What if paper skin? Remember when we were talking about issue 100 of volume 2 of What If? Well, an actual story that is featured in there is called Paper Skin. It is honestly such a strange story. I need to share it with you. This is a what if story that seems to posit the question of what if Mr. Sinister could offer Gambit a cure for Rogue's powers. It's revealed in the story that Gambit has already betrayed the X-Men by bargaining with Sinister, offering important Cerebro files in exchange for what he wants. Although what Gambit wants is not actually for him, but is kind of for all mutant kind, a cure to the Legacy virus. As he's about to leave after getting that cure, Sinister offers him something else that he simply can't resist. A cure for Rogue, his one true love, to help her control her powers. He agrees to steal one more thing for Sinister in exchange for the cure, a tithe box. Sinister has been searching for them and collecting them over the years. In the end, Rogue accepts the cure, but can't accept that Gambit has been helping Sinister, and so she kills him, taking his powers and also his look seemingly, which is kind of weird. It's like Gambit with and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this art, but okay. She goes after Sinister only to find the secret of what the boxes contained was Marvel Comics! Gasp. Now Sinister has so much information because he's been reading Marvel Comics. What a weird reality. What a meta reality. Number 1. What if Avengers vs. X-Men? In this bizarro story, Magneto helps to ensure that Hope ends up getting the Phoenix Force instead of it being split up into Iron Man by 5 parts, which possesses and creates the Phoenix 5. Magneto is seemingly helping Hope to control these new and awesome powers, but when she struggles and begins to turn dark, he suggests she give him some power to help her. In reality, Magneto kinda wants all the power for himself, which is just what he takes. This all happens in the last issue, by the way, of this 4-part what if story. And after Magneto takes the power, it gets pretty weird. Yeah, that's not where it ends. It just keeps going forever. He takes the power and is instantly corrupted by it. As such, Xavier somehow uses his powers to temporarily mess with Magneto's sight, despite the fact that Magneto is wearing his helmet, and then Wolverine snicks him through the eyes. This results in Magneto basically exploding, killing everyone on the planet, and destroying the Earth. Then Jean shows up randomly and just kind of reveals she saw all of this coming. She uses her Phoenix powers to fix the planet, bringing back plant and animal life, but not people for some reason. She says it's up to her and Wolverine as basically an Eve and an Adam of sorts to do that. She could have just brought all those people back, I'm pretty sure, because she's got the power of the Phoenix, but yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one.